You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Hello, everyone. Today's episode takes us up north to the legendary Lake of the Woods, a place where dreams of monster muskies are made and apparently crushed. So I was up there with my buddy Tracy and our usual crew of 12 guys and 6 boats, all staying at a resort we hit every year. But this trip, let's just say, didn't go exactly as planned. Temperatures were stuck in the low 60s and 70s, way cooler than our usual summer heat we are used to. And the muskies, they weren't having it. No follows, no bites, just endless casts and zero action. With nothing working on our usual spots, Tracy and I made the call to try a whole new area of the lake. The only catch, we had to portage the boat across land using this old cart cable system that looked like it hadn't been maintained in years. The plan was to portage the boat from Lake of the Woods, Sabscon Bay side of Turtle Lake into Whitefish Bay, an area with no cell phone service and a lot of water between us and civilization. It turned into one of the wildest fishing days I've ever had, and not because of the fishing action. Stick around, because this is one musky adventure you don't want to miss. On this particular trip to Lake of the Woods, I had a new partner who I've never fished with before. His name is Tracy. And we're fishing this area, Sabscon Bay. And we were having a very tough week. We're there for typically 8 days. And this was I believe it was day 3. And we hadn't caught a fish yet. We'd caught several northerns. But the muskie fishing was pretty slow. We had raised a few fish, but hadn't caught anything yet. So, you know, when you're kind of in a rut and things aren't going right, you need to do something different. So when we get back from the fishing that evening on day 3, I lay out a big map of Lake of the Woods. Our area, like I've said before, is Sabscon Bay. And I look on the map and trying to figure out where can we go. I mean, the lake is so vast. I mean, muskies can literally be anywhere. I mean, you could literally drop troll motor down 100 yards from the dock and catch a muskie. But I wanted an adventure. So a few of us had talked about, there's an area, it's called Whitefish Bay. We are up in Nestor Falls area. So we had done pretty well in this area, but a few of the guys had gone up to Whitefish Bay and talked about, you know, it's a long drive up by boat, but there's, you actually portage over land and go to another section of the lake, which is Whitefish Bay. So we're looking at the map and like, man, it's a long ways away. We'll have to bring a little bit of additional gas. And if we're going to do it, we got to get up early in the morning, first light, and we're going to have to drive all the way up there right away. So that's what we did. We got up that morning real early. Normally we're fishing in the water by 8 o'clock, only because it doesn't get dark until, 9:30, 10. So normally we're fishing from, let's say, 8 in the morning till 9 at night. And we don't come back to the lodge because we're so far out. We actually eat in the boat. So it's a really long day. So by the time we get in at 9:30, start making supper, we're eating at 10, in bed by 11, 12. So we sleep in the morning, and usually the next day we're climbing in the boat by 8 o'clock. So on this particular morning, we're like, well, we're going to have to go to bed early. And we're going to have to get up and be in the boat by 7 o'clock. Because, we're wasting a good chunk of the day. Let's say it's a, 45-minute boat ride, let's say, up there. So we're wasting part of our fishing time going up there. So we drive up there. And when we get up there, we see another boat. I thought that was kind of strange. I mean, no one from our crew had left yet. And they looked familiar. So I waved, and sure enough, it's friends of ours, James and his son Danny, which are brothers to some of the guys we have at the lodge. They're actually staying in a different area of the lake called King Island. And they had gotten up early and actually went up into this area and were muskie fishing. Well, they were releasing a muskie, and they were talking about it was Danny's personal best. It was actually a 48-inch muskie. So we thought, well, instead of going all the way up, if they just caught a fish here, maybe we should stick around and start fishing. It was actually a large rice bed area. So we start fishing the area a little bit. We spent, let's say about 45 minutes from the fishing that area. And Danny and James had gone out further fishing from us when I spotted something in the water. It was fitting on the top of the water, and we go over to this area where I seen this fish, and sure enough, it's the same fish that they had caught. Well, sometimes with muskies, when you catch them, especially when it's warmer, they can stress. And I mean, things happen. You can do all the things in the world. We have very, very large nets. So when we catch a muskie, we get them in the net, unhook the fish, leave them in the net, get all our stuff ready as far as cameras and all our handling glove and everything else. And then, because we don't want to stress the fish out any more than they have to. So the pen, the nets are so large, it's almost like a giant live well. So when we're ready, then we'll take the fish out of the net really quick, take a quick pick, stick it back in the water, then we'll hold its tail, and you just kind of sit there and let the fish, watch his gills, and you just kind of watch the fish's, reaction to the stress. The color, there will be a little bit of color change if there's some stress, but you just kind of hold on to the fish and wait till that fish is ready, and he'll power away from you. You'll feel it in the tail. You can almost feel him re-energize. You just got to imagine, you hook this big fish and you cranked them in with our 9-foot rods and, 80 to 100 pound line. So, it's quite a battle but most of the time us muskie fishermen win. Not always, but. So anyways, sometimes there can be a delayed mortality. No matter what you do, how well you've tried to get this fish to recuperate, things happen. So this fish was finning on top of its water. Well, we're all big catch and release guys in the muskie community, and I know things happen, and it's Mother Nature. And some guys will say, "Well, turtles got to eat too." That's a saying. But I felt terrible. It was a really big fish. 48 inches isn't a tiny fish. So I grabbed onto the fish's tail, and we sat there for half an hour trying to revive this fish. And about half an hour into it, we see Danny and James, and I wave them over. And I guess they were kind of surprised to see, hey, the same fish they had caught was still there. So they worked the fish. I said, well, we put a half an hour into it. At least you guys could do is do the same. So we kind of handed off the duties to those guys. When I did talk to them later in the day, they told me that the fish did recuperate and swam off strong. So hopefully the fish made it. I mean, things happen. It is Mother Nature. We do our best. Muskie guys aren't out there trying to, kill fish, or, Lake of the Woods has a 54-inch size limit. So it's not like you could keep the fish anyway. But we do our best to get the fish in as quick as possible, not do a long fight on it, get it in the net, and try to recuperate it. And also when you have it out of the water, no more than 30 seconds out of the water and it's back in. The biggest thing with us is it was awesome to catch that fish, that beautiful fish. I want someone else to have that same opportunity, right? So anyways, after we handed that fish off, we decided, well, we wasted enough time in this area fishing, so we got to get moving. So we get going, and as we're going, we see guys harvesting rice. So we watched an airboat. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this, but we watched an airboat, and it almost has like a scoop on the front of it. And they go over to the top of the rice beds, and they bend over, and the rice kind of catches in these fingers of this plow blade that's on front of the airboat, and they fall into this, I don't know what you want to say, almost the front of the boat. And when the boat fills up, they get out with shovels and they fill these big grain bags. And then there's another boat. There's a 24-foot flat bottom. I mean, the thing's got to be 8 feet wide. And they take the grain bags and they set them in this boat. Well, I didn't know that's how they did it. I'd watched videos on television, and all I've seen is when the Indians have their cedar dugout canoes or canoe, and they'll take 2 cedar sticks and they'll bend the rice over, and then they'll tap it with the other stick, and the rice grain will fall out into the boat. Well, that's not what this was at all. It was like a commercialized operation almost. The rice was not bent over nicely. It was just, I mean, there was rice pieces, or tops of the rice plant snapped off all over the water. I mean, it's not what I don't know if it hurts the plant or not, but it's not what I seen on television. I was kind of dumbfounded that's how it was done. But yeah, that boat probably had, I don't know, 20, 30 bags in it. And these are the big bags. So it's got to be 100 pounds or so each. I'm just referencing from, when I go to the co-op and buy a bag of corn and get a 100-pound seed bag. They were the same size, so I'd imagine they're probably 100 pounds each. So we watched that for a little while. And then we continued up through this area. It's called Turtle Lake. And at the top of Turtle Lake it's basically a strip of land, and then you can see another body of water. Well, that is Whitefish Bay. And there's a portage that's there. Well, I know some of you think, oh, yeah, just pick the boat up and walk across land. No. This is a mechanical portage. So as we come to find out afterward, and now years later, this is now 2025. This happened in 2016. Now that portage is completely gone. They pulled out the machinery. It's gone now. But at the time, it was a carriage portage. So when you pulled up, it almost looked like almost like a set of rail or railroad tracks. And these tracks went over the top of land to the water on the other side. Now, it wasn't a far portage. I would say, I'm trying to guess distance here. Let's do it in yards, maybe. I would say it's maybe 15 yards. And the carriage consisted of, I don't know how you want to explain it, but imagine like a metal cart with 2x4s on the sides, which when I talked to when we pulled up to it, Tracy had said, I don't remember those 2x4s on the side. So the 2x4s almost narrowed the carriage up. The carriage used to be really wide, probably over 100 inches wide. And now they had a 2x4 on each side to narrow it up. I suppose it was so only smaller craft could use it. So we don't have a tape measure on us. And we're looking at this. Excuse me. We're looking at this and we're like, yeah, the boat can fit on there, no problem. Now, the whole system looked old. Now, you can imagine this is sitting out in the weather year-round. It's not covered at all. So everything is rusted. It looks like zero maintenance is done on it. I mean, on the sides, the weeds are up crazy high. The sign's all faded. There's broken parts from in the past where it had broken and it's just laying there. It looked dilapidated, to tell you the truth. Well, at the top of the deck is a giant wheel. Well, imagine this giant wheel, and it's got to be for sure 6 foot tall, and the diameter of I don't even know, 10 feet around maybe. It's enormous. And basically the concept is you turn the wheel and the cart, it's a ramp. So it's angled down to one side of the lake that you're on. There's a peak, and then it goes down to the other side. So it's hard basically till you get up to that peak. And then when you get down to the other side, to the top of that little hill, I guess, it'll, momentum or gravity is going to take it down the other side. So this wheel runs a gearbox, and the gearbox, through the gearbox, there are a series of pulleys, and these cables are enormous. I mean, they're as big as man's wrist around. So Tracy had been on this portage, or to this portage years before, but it was broken. So he was never able to use it. The cable was broken. And everyone in our group pretty much had been there, and only one in the group had crossed the portage. And that's why that's part of the, the adventure, and why we wanted to go check this area out, because no one else had actually got to fish this area yet. Because we were told Whitefish Bay is extremely clear. It's not a high density area for muskies. There are muskies there. There are a lot of northerns. But if you do see a muskie, it's going to be very large. That's what we're told. So Tracy drives his boat up. Now he's got an older walleye boat, and it's aluminum. Just a normal 17 foot with a 90 horse on back. So we drive it up into the carriage, and when we get up into the carriage, we're not quite all the way to, the boat isn't completely centered on the carriage. What I mean by that is, as we drive forward, the boat actually kind of gets wedged in the 2x4s on the sides. That's there to, prevent bigger boats from going through there. Maybe a bigger boat like us, but I would have thought our boat would have went through. We had no tape measure. We're just eyeballing it. It was, I'm telling you, it's within a half inch. That's how close it is. So, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to work. So I tell Tracy, I said, put the boat in reverse. And he tries to put it in reverse, and we're stuck. So I hop onto the carriage, and I get on the front of the boat, and I'm trying to push this thing. Nothing's happening. It's not working. We farted around for a half an hour. I can't get this boat off. So in our harebrained scheme, we're like, well, we got it 3/4 of the way on. I mean, it isn't perfectly centered. Let's see if we could portage the boat over to the other side. Maybe momentum will, and the weight of the boat will basically let this thing plow through the rest of the carriage and down to the other side of the lake. So that's what we did. So I hopped up on the wheel and I started cranking. Well, the problem is the boat, the motor is so heavy, and the motor should be up a little further on the carriage. So the front of the boat wants to actually tip up. We didn't want this thing falling off the carriage. So I told Tracy, get on the front of the boat and stand on the very front of the boat to, kind of as a balance. So he climbed up front. See, he's Tracy's 200-pound guy. He stands on the front of the boat, and now the front end doesn't want to tip up at all. So I'm cranking on this wheel, and I'm telling you, everything in my body to try to get this thing about 1/4 of the way up. So once we get about 1/4 of the way up, I'm like, my arms are on fire. I mean, maybe the boat was probably too big for the carriage. So we decided to switch. So he jumps off the front of the boat. I jump on quick, and he starts cranking the wheel. He gets to the halfway point. We switch again. Well, now Now gravity should take place, right? Once I get to we're at the top of this ramp. Now we're going to be going down. The ramp angles back down to Whitefish Bay. Momentum and gravity should, rocket this thing down. Well, that did work, but we weren't thinking. So Tracy's still on the front of the boat. And the second the motor peaks over the top of that edge, this thing is a speeding rocket ship. So the whole carriage is going down this thing 100 miles an hour, and Tracy's standing on the front of it. And I remember at a moment, it was almost like slow motion, like his eyes and my eyes locked. And we're like, this was a stupid idea. And the second the front of the boat submarine, so it actually did submarine into the water, I see Tracy go flying through the air and go from the front of the boat all the way into the back of the boat, like just tumbling through the air and crashes to the ground. But the boat does clear the carriage, the momentum and just the weight of it. Yeah, it come completely off the carriage, and now we're in Whitefish Bay. So I jump off the wheel and run and jump in the boat, and Tracy's laying in the back of the boat moaning, and he gets up, and I'm like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's holding his knee. I guess he had knee problems in the past, and now his knee is flared up. I'm like, oh, that was stupid. It was my fault for wanting to go on this dumb adventure and try this new area of the lake. And Tracy's like, well, I'm not going to just cry over spilled milk. Let's get moving here, and then let's start fishing. So, like I said, we had never been into this lake, so we're just kind of cruising around a little bit. We're looking for structure to cast to, and we get to this first area and it's some weeds. And that's the thing with this lake. It's deep. I mean, it's deep and clear. I mean, there are lake trout in this lake. There's whitefish in this lake, hence Whitefish Bay. And you could look down like 25 feet and see the bottom. But there wasn't nothing for weed growth. Like the edges, like it wasn't a gradual taper and then down. It was almost like she dropped off immediately into 25 feet of water. So the normal weed edges and stuff we like to fish in Lake of the Woods, weed and rock and sand, wasn't there. It was rock and deep drops. So we're like, well, we're going to have to find structure in the water, be it spiny points or fingers coming out, humps, whatever we can find, and try to find fish. So we actually did find a few areas where there actually was a little bit of weed growth. It wasn't much, but every time we found those, we found a lot of northern. In fact, I did catch a 38-inch northern, which is the biggest northern we had caught in that area. And so, but it wasn't, and we just weren't seeing any muskies at all. We did find an area where there's a hump, and it came up 5 feet of water, and then Tracy finally rose his first muskie. He had rose him, and then he followed back to the boat and sunk away. I suppose with the water so clear. Usually, my experience just fishing, I'm here in Wisconsin, and my experience here when you're fishing really clear water lakes, a day that it's sunny. So to get to the actual temperatures of that day, so it was like 85 degrees, bluebird skies, flat calm, like exactly what you don't want on a day of muskie fishing, especially if you're fishing clear water. So to get back to when I'm fishing Wisconsin on a day like that, I wouldn't go to that lake. I'd go to that lake if there was like a light mist or it's really windy, because that clear water, I mean, that muskie can see that boat a mile away. And in order to fool a muskie on a lake like that, you got to have some sort of weather conditions that's breaking up your silhouette on top of the water. You're looking through a plate glass window, and there's two idiots in a boat up there. So it wasn't ideal muskie fishing conditions for that particular lake. The one cool thing we did find when we're up there is we saw, now I don't know what these are called. I suppose I could find it at the end of the book and put it in there, but the native people up there, we found paintings like under some rock ledges, basically where the weather can't get at it. And it was red. So it was like almost like red paint, but it wasn't. But yeah, we saw pictures of people and fish. I saw a picture of a snake. A picture of a person and a deer. These are all, native paintings that I would presume are hundreds of years old, because it was all in protected areas. We didn't see it like on an open rock face where the water and sun could get at it. It was almost like under ledges and stuff, especially when we were fishing tight to shore in some of these areas. So that was really cool to see that, because I don't know how many people have actually, found these and got to see them. And but the problem is, back then I think I was rocking a cell phone, flip cell phone, so didn't take the best of pictures. And I'm sure I have them around here somewhere. But so we fished the whole day there. We caught a lot of northern. We probably caught 20 northern, let's say, that day. No muskies. Had our lunch, fished the rest of the afternoon, a few more northerns. And now it's getting to about 7:30. And we have a long drive back. We got to go back to the portage, get over the top of that portage, and then we got a long drive back. So Tracy kind of called it. He's like, well, we better get moving. We had fun up here. We saw a lot of cool things. Now, when we were in that area, we only saw, we didn't see, did we see another boat? Maybe I saw one other boat. Yeah, we did. We saw one other boat. There were a couple natives, and they were checking a net. But other than that, we saw two old cabins. One was really dilapidated. It looked like snow had caved in the roof. And the other cabin looked abandoned to me. There's no boats or anything on the dock. The dock was really rough shape. And that was it. We didn't see another soul up there, which is, the whole reason sometimes why we go to Lake of the Woods every year is to try to get away from people and enjoy Mother Nature. And it's a bonus to catch some northerns and muskies. So we make our way back to this portage, and it's now, like I said, a little after 7:30. It's dark. We fish till 9 o'clock. Let's say it's dark by, 9:30. So, we roughly got 2 hours maybe, but we got to get this thing on the portage. And I think it took us, it probably took us a half an hour to portage this boat over. But now we kind of know how it works, and we thought maybe we could cut down on that time. So we drive up to the portage, and I look, and the carriage is on the opposite side. So someone must have been in the Whitefish Bay side, got on the carriage, and then put it back in on Sabascon Bay side. So no big deal. I'll just have to hop up, crank on the wheel, get the cart back on our side, and then we'll load the boat up and do everything in reverse. Only we won't stand on the front of the deck on the way back down. We don't need that again. So I hop up on the deck and I spin the wheel and nothing happens. This thing is like the loudest creaking, squeaking noise you ever heard. I probably have permanent hearing damage from running this wheel, but nothing is happening. I look down, and the wrist size cable is completely frayed and broken. So I hopped down there. I don't know why. It wasn't like I was going to fix it. This steel cable, you can't just tie a knot in it or anything. I'm looking around. Yep, it's completely broken. This thing is probably, 8 strand, and yep, it's broke. So there's a sign there, and it's kind of faded, and it has a 188, so 1-800 number, basically 18888 something. I go to call it. I have no signal on my phone. Tell Tracy what's going on. Tracy pulls out his phone. Nothing. We have no signals. But now we're stuck. So now what? we're contemplating, okay, are we going to have to sit here all night? Hopefully someone in our group comes to look for us. I mean, they knew, we told everyone in our camp. So we had, in this particular trip, I think we had, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 12 of us. So we had 6 boats. So there's 5 boats back there. I mean, you'd think they would come look for us, but I could kind of tell some other stories and about those guys. And I'm thinking, I think we're going to be staying here till the morning. And the mosquitoes now are starting to come out. You know, everybody talks about Canada, about the black flies. The black flies are earlier in the season. Right now, when we were up there, it's the last week of August. And that's the time of year we like to fish. So the tourist season is winding down. That's basically the last big hurrah of the season up there. And then fall begins. So no one's really around unless you're, tourist, it seems like. We saw more people in Sabaskon Bay at their cabins, kind of closing stuff up. But this area, like I told you, we only seen 2 cabins and I didn't see a soul. So we're like, now what? Are we going to be, we're digging through the boat. We got no bug spray. We did have our rain gear. So I thought, okay, maybe we could put on our rain gear and we'll just lay in the bottom of the boat and kind of cover up our face so mosquitoes don't drain all our blood. We ate all our food that day. And we did have some water left. So that was good. It was very hot. So I'm like, well, maybe we should go back and try to see if we can find someone else out on the lake. We did see those natives earlier in the day, but that was in the morning. So we get back out, and now, of course, we're losing light, getting nervous. We have no idea where we're at. We never fished this area before, and no cell phone service. So I get up with binoculars and scan the lake. I don't see a soul. Turn the boat off to see if we could hear another boat. Nothing. All you could hear is loons, the occasional eagle, and that's it. So I said to Tracy, let's go back over by those cabins we seen. So we motor past the first cabin. Well, the dock isn't even there. It's in pieces in the water. The roof is caved in, so we know there's no one there. The second one looked almost as bad. The roof wasn't caved in yet, but I could see a dim light on inside the cabin. So I'm like, maybe someone is there. So we pull up to the dock. This thing is, I didn't even want to hop on the dock. I mean, it was so dry rotted, I thought for sure I'd plop through. So hop on the dock, this thing is creaking, and I get off it as fast as possible. And now there's a little trail that leads up to the cabin. The cabin's probably, 40 yards off the water. And I mean, the grass is for sure knee high. And the screen door is open. It's all torn, but it's open. I knock on the door. I can't hear anything. I kind of look in through the window. I don't see anything. I knock 3 times. Wait. Nothing. Like, oh. Well, I guess we're going to get chewed up by mosquitoes that night. So I start walking back toward the dock. And I hear, kind of in a thick French accent, "Can I help you?" And I turn around, and there's this real thin guy, hair slicked back, probably, I don't know, I'm not the best at judging age. I would say probably maybe 80 years old, I would say. I mean, old guy. And he's got a can of beer in his hand, smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, yeah. I said, we're stranded. I said, we came over on the portage, on the rail cart, and now we try to go back. I said, and it's broken. And he starts laughing. Just like a belly laugh. And I'm like, okay. think it was that funny. And he's like, how did you get that giant walleye boat on that portage and over here? He was just dumbfounded. I'm like, well, I mean, it was a tight fit, but we got it. He's like, I can't even believe that thing worked. He's like, it's broken all the time. No one uses it at all. He's like, there's sometimes the entire season goes by and that thing is broken down and they never come to fix it. So I'm like, oh, that's nice to know. I said, do you have a phone we could use? Nope, no phone. So he's like, well, why don't you go to the lodge? There's no lodge around here. There's nothing. So it tells us that if we go back down the lake about 3/4 of a mile, there we get into these real tall reeds, and there's a channel, and that channel will take us back into another little bay, and there's a resort there called Vic and Dots. So I'm looking at my map, and I just got a paper map at the time, and I don't see it on there. I kind of see that it does look like there's a little bit bigger area there. So he's like, it's hard to see. Now it's low light conditions now. So nothing really pops out in low light conditions. So we thank him. I jump back in the boat, tell Tracy. So we punch her, we get down there, and we go past this area where it's real thick reeds and it's shallow water. So it's, 3 feet of water. And we're trying to not hit any rocks. We go through there. Nothing. I didn't see anything. We go through a couple times through this area. Nothing. Eventually I said, okay, let's just drop down the trolling motor and go really slow. So we shut the main motor off, drop the trolling motor down. Plus I want to try to hear, can I hear any other boats in there? Can I hear people talking or anything? Drop the trolling motor down, and I can faintly see where some reeds are bent over and broken. So I kind of just take their trolling motor and I just slowly go through, and the channel starts to get a little bit more and more defined. I see more reeds bent down over, and eventually starts to get wider and wider and wider. And all of a sudden I come around the corner and it opens up, and there's this great big bay. In the bay, we can see all these cabins and a boat landing. Didn't even know. We had no idea it was there. We never seen any boats come out of there. And for them, that's basically their end of their season. No one was even at the resort. So that's why we never heard anybody, never saw anybody on the lake. And so we motor up to the dock, and the place looks deserted. And I could see where his main lodge is at by the boat landing. So we stroll on up. We go in, and sure enough, we meet this gentleman who was the grandson of Vic and Dot, who used to own the place. And we start telling him about what had happened to us. And same thing. I don't know. Apparently all these Canadians thought we were not very bright, which we're not. And he started belly laughing about, couldn't believe we tried to take this big boat on the carriage, and that thing is always broken, and on and on and on. And then he asked, he's like, well, where'd you come from? Well, we told him what resort we're staying at. And he starts to laugh even more. He's like, you could have just put your boat on a trailer, drove down the road 15 minutes, and put in at my boat landing. Instead of farting around, driving 45 minutes across the lake, dinking around a half an hour on the portage, and then fishing. He's like, you could have cut all that time off. Well, we didn't know that. So anyways, come to find out, he is best friends with our lodge owner. So he pulls out his flip phone, dials it up. Our lodge owner answers. He tells him the story. You can hear over the phone our lodge owner laughing. And so the lodge owner, as he's talking to the guy, looks out the window, and we got really lucky. So Tracy has 2 boys, Derek and Garrett, and they actually had come back to the dock early that evening. And we were going to do a fish fry that night. So we usually try to get back a little earlier. Instead of staying out till 9, we try to get back at, let's say, 8:30, so we can kind of get ready for our fish fry. And they had gotten back early so they could help set the fish fry up. So he hollered down to them. They got Tracy's keys. And then we got directions and then drove over to us. And we got the boat loaded up. It only cost us $15 for a one-way boat launch and just basically taken out. And we drive back up the road, back to our place, and put the boat back in, like in Sabscon Bay, motor back up to the docks, tie her up. And we were standing around talking to the guys, and all of a sudden I feel like a hand on my shoulder. I look over and there's a hand on Tracy's shoulder from behind. And it's almost like you go back in time when you were in high school and, you know, you're in trouble and the teacher grabs your shoulder and, you know, you're in for not a yelling, but, you know, you're going to have a nice discussion. And the lodge owner, I'll just change his name for reasons. But let's say his name is Tim. And he's like, what in the heck were you guys thinking? He's like, why didn't you just tell me you wanted to go fish Whitefish Bay? He's like, I would have given you directions. I would have called the lodge owner over there. He could have gave you tips of where to fish. And it would have been a 15-minute ordeal versus wasting your whole day around. And I said, well, if we'd have done that, we wouldn't have an adventure, would we? And that's kind of what we wanted to have. Luckily, we didn't, no one got hurt. Tracy was still hobbled around for the rest of our trip. And I didn't have all the blood sucked out of us that night from mosquitoes. We were very fortunate to make it back safe. The cable broke. We were stuck with no cell phone service. And it reminded me just how quickly things can change out there, especially on a big remote lake like Lake of the Woods. If there's one lesson from that experience, it is this: never take safety for granted. Always fish with a partner, and always let someone know your plan. It wouldn't be a bad idea to talk to the lodge owner or locals in the area. They're not just there for you to check in. They know the water, they know the weather, and their insight can save you hours of guessing and maybe a whole lot more. It's also a good idea to bring up a backup communication device, such as a GPS or bag phone. Keep extra food, water, rain gear. I even know some guys who bring up a small pop-up tent in their boat. These aren't over preparations. They're smart habits when you're off the grid. I've been fishing Lake of the Woods for years, and I actually wrote a book back in 2021 called A Muskie Slayer's Bible, a guide on what not to do. It's filled with all the lessons I've learned, most of them the hard way. So if you want some laughs and maybe a few cautionary tales, you should check it out. I'll leave a link in my podcast description and on my social media on where you can find it on Amazon. If you'd like to hear another story from one of my crazy adventures on Lake of the Woods, look up episode 13 on wherever you listen to podcasts. It's promptly named Dumpster Fire Honeymoon. And it can also be found in the first chapter of my book, A Muskie Slayer's Bible. I hope you enjoyed this story. And as always, stay safe out there and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewildoutdoors@gmail.com.